listener production.
I'm automotive commentator and journalist Greg Rust, and this is Rusty's Garage. For this episode, I'm in New Zealand, south of Auckland, ahead of the final ever Supercars event at Pukekohe before the track closes in April 2023. My guest is Lee Holdsworth, one of the most respected drivers in the sport. His Bathurst win in December 21 with Chaz Mostert and the Walkinshaw Andretti United team was a popular one and a significant breakthrough in Lee's career. He finally put a great race win on that CV. The timing of our conversation follows his recent announcement that Lee will retire from full-time driving at season's end. We talk about Bathurst, the future of some of his on- and off-track plans. Through our convo, you'll get a sense of his incredible loyalty, one of the hallmarks of his career. Insights into important relationships that have been pivotal to doors that he worked hard to open along the way, and how even those that were tested, like his association with Charlie Schwerkolt, for example, Lee extended the olive branch on to get things back on track. They're good now. This is a two-part chat, more than an hour 45 of conversation, and both of them are available for your listening pleasure, hopefully, in our Rusty's Garage library right now. We are sitting outside in the backyard of his Grove Racing stablemate, Matt Payne's parents' place. It's a sunny day. The louver on the cover of the outdoor area is open. The family cat even makes a cameo along the way. We begin at a turning point in life and racing for Lee. Welcome.
Thank you.
It is good to catch up with you, but at a really timely point. Let's start with, if you don't mind, retirement Mark II, or from full-time driving at least, anyway. And it sounds like it's more on your terms.
A little bit more on my terms.
Exactly.
This time. Retirement Mark I certainly was out of the blue for me. So, at the end of 2020, came out of Bathurst and, I was pretty upbeat about that weekend. We provisional pole and finished up 7th with Caruso, which wasn't the result that we were after, but it still wasn't too bad. And felt we'd made some good steps with the car, at least for qualifying, because, as you know, this category's mostly about qualifying. And we'd found a couple of little tweaks in the car that were really good for switching that tyre on. And then after Bathurst, thought, beauty, 2021 will be a good year. And then got the phone call that 2021 wasn't going to be, wasn't.
It was a late in the game phone call too, wasn't it?
It was a very late phone call. So, long story short, I didn't have a drive for the following year because Tickford moved from 4 cars down to 3, and I was the sacrificial lamb and all that.
You okay with that now? Like a bit of time's passed?
To be honest, at the time I understood it. I was pissed off, but I understood it, and I understood it from, I can always see both sides. I'm not completely biased like, some people, but I could understand their point of view. If you don't have the money to run the car, you can't run it. So, and plus they only had 3 licenses. So what were they meant to do? Someone had to take the fall. And Jack had brought truck assist with him, and they were on my car. So when Supercheap left, truck assist went on to Jack's car. So it was pretty. I could understand why I was the one that was leaving and no one else. But it wasn't the way. For me, I hadn't planned for the following year with anything else, obviously, because I knew I'd had a contract in front of me. So then it came to the point where I thought, it was too late in the game to get a drive for the 2021.
What's going through your mind at this point? Because you're probably thinking, you're still late 30s, you still got lots of good stuff you had to want to do, to tick, to achieve. It would have been quite hard to deal with privately, I would have thought.
It was hard in a few ways. I'd been trying for a long time to get back into a competitive seat, and I'd finally felt like I'd done that, and I was pretty comfortable. I had good teammates. I had, working well with my engineer, and enjoyed the people that I was working with. And then, we'd just come off 2 years of COVID-related, challenges. And it was a massive hit. Personally, I think was the hardest thing. You go through this whole career sacrificing everything for the sport that you love. Since we were, since you're knee height to a grasshopper, you concentrate on doing this as a profession, and you don't really focus on a life outside of motorsport. At that point, I just had nothing to go to. And that was
Were you difficult to live with then? And what was Alana like? I mean, she's obviously your biggest supporter. How did she?
Yeah, Alana was a massive, massive support, and we just, to make matters worse, at the start of 2021, we went through some, more personal challenges with, we had a miscarriage at 32 weeks. Sure. So that was in January. So the hits just kept coming, and whilst we're on the ground, we'd cop another kick to the guts, and that was probably the most difficult time of my life up to this point, for sure. And and then it came down to, I was trying to support Alana, but then at the same time she was probably supporting me more, which wasn't fair. And but she helped get me back, to where I am now. She's been a massive support throughout my whole career, and wouldn't have gone as long, or maybe not even got into the sport professionally if it wasn't for her. So she's been there, since I started, when I was 20 years old, and then became professional when I was 22. And so she got me back on track, and I got my life back together, and tried to support her as much as I could at the same time. So picked up a good enduro gig, and got a job with a tool company as an ambassador, and then I knew that wasn't going to last forever, and I was doing TCR as well, and then back to that whole chasing budgets and stuff like that, which
hard.
It's hard. That's the stuff you do at the start of your career, not at the end. So I sort of wondered what the hell I was doing with myself, and I spent the year looking for other jobs, other opportunities. Well, I was reaching out to my sponsors, and I had an opportunity with, I'd spoken to Marcus Preston, who Preston Hire, and the boys are sitting there taking photos, Matt Payne and David Reynolds. Of course. He'd presented an opportunity to me, which was looking really cool, and then sat down with one of Riley, my son's best friend's dads, who we've got to know pretty well over the last few years. And he's, I was having a beer in lockdown, even though we weren't meant to be, and he said, "What's the next move for you, mate?" And I said, "Honestly, I just don't know. I'm at a fork in the road. All I know is racing, and now I've got to try and find something else, which I've never prepared for in my life, which I just thought, I'm pretty stupid. Got to that point, and I thought, why haven't I prepared myself?
But that's hard, though, because you made a lot of sacrifices when you were younger to do this. It was your pure passion, which you just talked about. Suddenly, beyond your control, the drug is going to stop, and not everyone does that, because you have to be immersed in it, mate, to make it work.
You have to be. You have to be. Yeah, and I often say to young kids, try to have something on the side, but then at the same time you're like, but if you're concentrating on something else, you can't put full focus into racing, which you need to be professional to become professional in racing. You have to sacrifice everything. But then at the end of it all, you're pretty much left with not a lot. You've got, well, it depends which way you look at it. You come out of it with great connections, which we can use to our advantage in business, and some great relationships, a lot of people skills, public speaking, a little bit of sales in that we had to sell ourselves to personal sponsors and that sort of thing. So you sort of come out of it with a lot of skills, but no qualifications. And in racing, there's only so far you can go, and really the way that I see it, it's the pinnacle is being the driver, but where do you go after that? And that's what I see is so hard for the drivers, and in any sport I think it's hard, but there's probably a little bit more support in some other sports than what we have in supercars, and we've often looked at driver unions and that sort of thing, and having an association to help position yourself better for after.
Not all managers do that well either. They're there for those that use them along the way and help commercially.
Yeah.
But not all of them have this kind of succession planning thing, do they?
No, definitely. I think, the managers are mostly focused on getting the drivers into the best seat possible and trying to get sponsors for the drivers, and that's probably as far as it goes, to be honest. I don't think they look beyond racing itself. So anyway,
Riley's dad's mate.
Chris O'Brien is his name, and from CBRE Commercial Real Estate. And he said, "Have you thought about real estate?" I said, "Not a chance." I said, "I'm not a salesman." He said, "You don't have to be. You just have to be good with building relationships and have good connections." And I thought, well, okay, I think I'm pretty good at both of those things. So he suggested a new business line for CBRE, which was an industry, the industry that I've been involved in, which is automotive and oil and gas and service stations and car dealerships, all that sort of stuff. And they didn't have anyone that really specialises in it just yet. And they thought this could be right up my alley. So, when that opportunity came about, I couldn't really, it was exciting. And I thought, I've got to give this a crack. So the plan was to go full-time this year, and then Bathurst rolls around.
Pretty special moment in your life.
Pretty special, yeah. Yeah, very special. And, I always... I never thought that we wouldn't have a chance of winning that race. Like, you go there, I've been there so many times, and there's probably never been a time where I've been as confident going into that race as last year. Great team, great driver, Chaz. I knew that Chaz is fast there. Walkinshaw's always did a good job with strategy as well, and had good fuel economy. So going into that race, I had this mindset that nothing was going to be good enough but a win, and you don't get that often, But when you get that feeling, you sort of it doesn't come for no reason. You know that you're going to have a great opportunity, and we just had a ripper time. And in the lead up to it, we had we had great test days.
Is that where you got the confidence feeling? Is it what were you?
I was a little bit concerned about the height difference between myself and Chaz and his driving style and whether I'd fit in with that. But from the first test day, I jumped in, and honestly, it was like I had a pretty big seat insert. It was like a phone book, but I was comfortable, and the car was comfortable for me to drive, and it was sort of like, well, what do I need? And, I'd give my feedback, and it'd be exactly the same as Chaz. And so we could just jump in and out of the car and keep tuning it, which was great, because sometimes drivers like little subtle differences, which can be, it can be the difference between a couple of tenths on the track. But Chaz and I just wanted exactly the same thing, and even more so when it came to Bathurst. So I think in the practice sessions, as soon as I drove out for my session, I think Chaz had his session first, and it was looking strong. And then I rolled out, went, yep, this is feeling pretty bloody good. We knew because we rolled out such a great car, we got to that point where we were probably preempting the track conditions for each session, and so we sort of felt like we were probably one step ahead of everyone from the start of the week, because generally you roll out and okay, we got understeer over the top, or we need more rear wing, and then it affects other parts of the track when you do that. And so we to have that balance at the start of the week was really cool, and we sort of felt like we had that in our pocket pretty early in the week, and we just kept building on it. And then we got to a point where we're like, well, what do we need to do? Okay, well, let's try. If this happens with the track, we want to know what we need to do to tune the car. So then we're trying stuff that we really didn't, it was just a bonus. and and becomes qualifying and the race, and we all know what happened. It was, we just had a dominant car, and it was just such an enjoyable weekend. And I guess looking back on that now, it's contributed a bit to the decision that I've come to retire, that I've ticked that box. Yes, I would have loved to have won it as a main driver, and still, this year's still an opportunity. But I was proud of my efforts in that race, and to bounce back from what had happened in 2020, I was pretty satisfied with stepping outside of motorsport at the end of 2021. But then the phone rang. It actually rang in the lead up to the race, and from Stephen Grove, who said that they're interested in putting me in the car for the following year. Let's chat after the round. And on the Tuesday, he rang me and said, we want to sign you. So at that point, I thought, shit, I've already decided I'm full-time next year with CBRE. But, so I had to juggle a few things and try and line it all up. And, CBRE, Chris O'Brien was very supportive of it, and knew that if there's an opportunity to keep going in this sport full-time, I remember he said to me after the race, mate, you can't stop racing after that.
How fantastic.
Yeah, so now I'm part-time, so I went on a part-time basis and had this agreement that we'll go full-time once Supercars full-time racing is over.
So a bit to unpack here, and I'm going to dive in different directions if we can. Firstly, you had, because of what unfolded in COVID, a bit of a plan, which is good. Maybe it came about not in a manner that you were anticipating in a planning, a long-term planning sense, but you had something. So at what point this year, knowing you'd been through all of that, come back, won Bathurst and so on, at what point did you go, okay, I'm going to call time? Where were you when you made that decision? What did you tell Alana and so on?
Well, I'd only done a 12-month deal with Stephen Grove Racing, Penrite Racing, and so I always thought that this would be my last year. Okay. I never thought that another opportunity would arise at the end of this year. It's not ideal doing a 12-month deal, but it was a great, for me, I had in my mind that this gives me an opportunity to come back and finish on my own terms and, finish the way that I want to finish, and know when my time is up. And so I had that in mind, but then an opportunity popped up, and it was a very good opportunity that, it was a hard decision to say no. But once, and that was developing well before Sandown. And then Sandown rolled around and I hit 500 races, which I thought, I never thought about it. I never thought about how many races I'm up to. But then once I hit 500, I look at the names that I was amongst with those.
Pretty cool club, mate.
Yeah,
very
cool club. And I thought, that's a hell of a lot of races. And a lot of challenges along the way, but heaps of enjoyment. And I thought, I've ticked so many boxes that I wanted to tick in this sport. Yes, I would have loved to have won more races or a championship. I don't think any of us come out of it entirely satisfied with what we've done, but whether you've run one race or you've won 100 races, I'm sure Whincup would have probably liked to have won a few more, or Lowndes or whoever. But I just thought, it's probably time. I've got something in the background now. There's probably kids that want it more than me now, and are prepared to sacrifice more than I am. And plus, Alana and the kids have given so much back, or given so much to me in what they've sacrificed as well, that I thought, it's time to be a real, a dad that's at home each weekend and helping out with the kids' sport, which is just getting more and more full on, and I love it. I love being involved. I help coach Ava's basketball team. Awesome. And just really enjoy that side of it. But
are you competitive, coach? What are you like?
Only a little bit.
Why doesn't that shock me?
I'm not the BMX dad, though. I'm not the BMX dad. I told Alana. She just wanted me to do it it to be my decision.
Good stuff.
And I knew it had been quite hard. It's been quite hard on her. Probably the last few years has been really hard. You know, we going through last year, that was a terrible year apart from a few great things, but and that took its toll. And then so I just thought, you know, it's time to man up and, you know, get a real job. and I can do that and support my family and also be there each weekend for my family as well. So she was really supportive of the decision I made, and I think she's pretty happy with it.
You used the word mindset before. I'm not a religious person, right? But you clearly are at peace with this. This is a good thing.
Yeah.
You're really comfortable with it. I can sense that in you, mate.
Very comfortable. You know, I think I look back at how it all played out in 2020, and you know what we went through last year, and people always say things happen for a reason, and last year I'm like, what's the reason for this? Like, why? And now I look back, I'm like, that's the best thing that ever happened to me was what happened at the end of 2020. You know, probably wouldn't be a Bathurst winner right now had that not have happened, and wouldn't have a great opportunity outside the sport either. So, you know, it was character building. You know, you sort of realise who's your greatest support out there, and what, you know, how many fans you have, and how much support you have within the sport as well. So, you know, I think I'd just be hanging on to it if that hadn't happened, because I still wouldn't had something outside of motorsport to go to.
Mm-hmm. And you've ticked the, you know, for now at least, the 1,000 box, haven't you? Which is a massive thing for your CV. Okay, a couple of things. Bathurst this year with a young bloke at Penrite Racing. What's that going to be like?
Well, he's listening at the moment, so I better be careful.
Look at the pair of them. We're looking inside. We're at Matt Payne's place at Pukekohe. I don't know what the hell those two are up to. Reynolds is on the laptop. He's got a PlayStation controller on.
They're like two peas in a pod. They've both got the mindset of a 15-year-old.
He's a good young talent, isn't he?
Yeah,
What's he like?
He's great. I'm looking forward to teaming up with Matty. He's come so far, probably in the last 12 months. I mean, I think everyone knew he always had the ability. He's maturing a lot. We saw last year he had great speed, but then, you know, there'd be mistakes. But one thing that Gary always said to me, Gary Rogers I'm referring to, he said, you can train someone to slow down, but it's very hard to make them speed up. And I think he's definitely got that. He's fast. He's just, as he matures, he's going to get better and better. And, Bathurst is a long race, and it's one race that, it's hard for the rookies. But he's going to be there in his Super 2 car. He's going to be doing a hell of a lot of laps there. But, I think I'm hoping that, having someone with experience around there, myself, I know what you go through as a young guy around there, and the head games that you fight with yourself, within yourself. You've just got to remain calm and enjoy it and not take any crazy risks. And that's the hard part for the young guys. So, I think I'll be a bit of a calming influence for him, and hopefully, I think we'll be strong together.
You may not be able to talk about the detail here, so if you can't, that's totally fine. It sounds as though Ryan said, "Okay, no problem." Ryan Walkinshaw, I'm talking here. You can go off and do the Grove thing. That's a great opportunity to go and do full-time driving again, but we want you back when that's over. Will you go back and do endurance races with them? It sounds like that's,
Would I go back?
Yeah, of course you would.
Absolutely.
Of course you would.
Why wouldn't
you?
Why wouldn't I?
Exactly.
I had a 2-year deal with Walkinshaw's for endurance driving, and they were great to release me from that to come and do the Grove racing thing. I can't speak about what's going on for next year at this stage, but I feel I'm confident that I'll be in something pretty decent next year. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But, yeah, I think that'll all pan out in the next 4 weeks or so. And, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to announce so early about what my plans for next year was so I can enjoy the last 4 rounds of the year and say goodbye. There's a lot of people in the sport great drivers who have exited the sport without being able to say goodbye. GT's one of them. He went into the break thinking he was coming back the following year, and his time came to an end. So I think that's unfair for some, for a lot of drivers, and I just thought that it's pretty cool to be able to actually say, see you later, thanks, and enjoy the last 4 rounds. So that's where my focus is on getting the best results for the rest of the year, and whatever happens for enduros happens over the next 4 weeks, and but I don't have to worry too much about it, I don't think.
You got the next chapter organised. It's been your life for effectively 20 years. Going to be hard to stop? Going full time, going to rounds, going to the circus, the family that is Supercars on a regular basis.
Yeah, I absolutely. It becomes like a family. The community, like we all know each other. There's mechanics that have been around, since I started and they're spread across every team in the paddock. In every team in the category, I know someone that I've worked with, and I think that's pretty cool. So I'm going to miss that, yeah, for sure. But what I really want to do is get back to, at some points in the game when you don't feel you got the right opportunities, it becomes a bit of a job, and you don't want that. Like it's
shouldn't be a grind.
It's the dream, It's what I always dreamed of doing is racing in supercars, and you get to that point where it becomes a job. And so I think next year I need a little bit of time just to get away and realise why I love it again. If I go out and win this weekend, Pukekohe, I'll love it again. I haven't lost my for the punters at home, I haven't lost my love for the sport. It's just we go away to win, and when you're not doing that, it's it becomes a bit of a grind.
I think we understand the differentiation. Don't. That's not misplaced. I think you naturally want to win. That's how you're programmed. And when you can't do that on a regular basis, I guess that gets hard. But it doesn't mean when you slip behind the wheel that you still don't love firing up that supercar. It doesn't mean that, does it?
100%, no. I mean, every time you jump in the car, you got this like burning desire to be the fastest out there, to get pole, to get the race win. But unfortunately, you can't always do that, and you don't always have the opportunity to do it. So I mean, coming back last year and doing that with Chaz at Bathurst was like, it was refreshing to me to go up against one of the guys that's one of the best in the category. Or certainly, in my view, Chaz is up there in the top 2 or 3 in the category, and then to be a close match with him was like, okay, I realise I've still got it, and I want to make sure that I make the most of this opportunity. And then looking back at the rest of my career, I sort of feel like I've made the most of every opportunity I've had. I don't feel like I've ever been, in equipment that was capable of winning or getting podiums without actually achieving that. So, I'm satisfied. But yeah, I think once I sit back and I'm away for it for a little bit, I reckon I'll be ringing my brother and saying, hey, can you roll out that TA2 car? Let's go for a test day. Let's do a test day.
Have you driven one of those things yet?
I have, yeah.
What did you think?
Well, like I said, my brother's got one, so I did a couple of test days with him last year and had so much fun in it. So much fun. Man, they sort of... And people grab quotes from us about this so that they use it against supercars and stuff like that.
Listen to it in full, folks.
Yeah, like it's what drivers want. What I love to drive is a car that slides. The crowd want to see that too. They want to see something that slides, hard to drive, doesn't suffer from aero wash from the car in front, so you can race close. Really, the direction, and hear this, journos, the direction that the Gen 3 is going, and that's what we want. So, yeah, that's why I enjoy it so much, and I might do it. Yeah, maybe I'll do a race or two in that next year.
Good stuff.
Don't know.
Okay, watch this space. Hey, I want to rewind the clock to Bathurst because I have a very vivid recollection in my mind of walking into the Walkinshaw garage on a couple of occasions and you seated by Ryan there, and we focused on that tyre issue at one point during the race, and that's the media kind of role. For that last 20 laps or so, what were you like knowing,
oh my God,
shit, I might finally do this?
Well, I had people texting me saying, "Oh, you guys have got this in the bag." I'm like, "Shut up!"
As it's happening.
Yeah, as it's happening. And I could see at some points I'm reading my text. I look up at the telly and the camera's actually on me, and I'm thinking, I didn't know what to think. I just didn't want to. I've been there too many times where you think, "Hey, this is looking good. We're on here."
So you don't let yourself do that.
No, I couldn't do it. And to be honest, for me, and looking back, the best thing, like the most rewarding thing, was that we had that tyre failure and we bounced back from it. That was the cool thing, because yes, we had a great car. Yes, we started on pole. Yes, we were leading the race for quite some time. But then that happened and it was like, far out. We've got the car to bounce back, but this is a challenge now. And it was actually exciting, because it was like we can still win this, and that's we had to then take some risks with passes and our driving. We had to push hard to get back to where we wanted to be, which was to lead the race, obviously. Those last few laps was like, Shane playing games at one point, trying to back Chaz up, which worked, but Chaz bounced back from it. Shane's a bit of he's a sneaky racer sometimes. He's a very smart racer, but he can be very sneaky, and sometimes it can screw people over. And I was just thought, please, just all I was thinking is, as long as we don't end up in a crash here, Chaz will fight back, and we've got the car speed to win. So, eventually, pit stops rolled around, we got back to the front, and then we were able to, manage the gap, I suppose, and Shane was pushing hard. I was just praying that we didn't have another tyre failure, and I just didn't relax up until I thought, when he came out of, all the team were up and about when he came out of Forest Elbow, and I thought, can still have a tyre failure down Conrod here. So
you were thinking that?
Honestly, I just thought, I never ever, I get ahead of myself sometimes, and I thought, I'm not getting ahead of myself here. And I waited until he was in the chase, and then I thought, we got it, we've won. And ran over to the fence and celebrated really hard.
How'd that feel?
Oh, incredible. At the time, I think I was that stressed and that had that much adrenaline that it hadn't sunk in yet. It was quite strange, and I reckon I get more emotional about it now than what I did at the time. Was like, we just won Bathurst, and it just wasn't registering in my head what
you'd done,
that we'd actually done it. Because was it my 18th attempt or something, or 18th, I think.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And I've been on the podium there. I've led the race for, 2/3 of the race.
Unbelievable fights with Murph just to get a podium at one point.
Yeah,
and all sorts.
So there's been moments where I've thought, geez, that could have been our year. And then to finally get one was just incredible. And then, hanging over the pit fence, the pit wall was really cool. And every time I look at that photo, the emotions come back to me. And so but now to look back and go, I've actually got that on the CV. That's mega, And then to think, if I was thinking about how my kids would feel about it in 20 years' time, to go, Dad won Bathurst. That's that cuts me deep too.
Does it? Did it change your world? Like, school drop-offs, or there he is, he's a Bathurst winner.
Yeah, for sure. It's what you get that when people look at your career, they look at the highest moments, and some people don't. Some people win a lot of races, but they don't win Bathurst, or they might win a championship, but some people still don't get to win Bathurst, and you sort of get, I think, a bit of a label when you've won Bathurst that, hey, that's the guy that won Bathurst last year. And, people probably wouldn't say that so much about, hey, that's the guy that won in Queensland Raceway a couple of weeks ago, or wherever else. Or even, it's the guy that won the championship. It doesn't have that effect on people, because whether you're a motor racing fanatic or not, people still know the Bathurst 1000. So it's the grand final, and we've won it.
You've been driver's driver, and your respect for a long time among your constituents is incredible. What was some of the reaction from the people that you go to war with every couple of weeks and things like that? I would imagine there's been a lot of love for the fact that you were finally able to do that.
No, it was amazing. I genuinely felt like people were happy for me. Like we're always happy for the winner, and think that whoever wins it is deserving of it. But yeah, it was genuinely like it just felt very genuine from the other drivers that came over and congratulated me, other teams, team owners, all the rest of it. That was very cool. So, I've got a lot of, we all have a lot of respect for each other out there on the track, probably even more for each other off the track, definitely more. But, someone said to me, are you sick of people saying that you're the nice guy? I'm like, well, you know what, it pisses me off in a way, because I don't think that the other drivers think that about me on track. Mm-hmm. I don't give them an inch. Mm-hmm. But I take pride in that label outside of the race car.
As you should.
Yeah.
As you should. Final on this Bathurst subject, because we could unpack it for ages here. How wounded were you? What were the celebrations like? Ryan does enjoy a good celebration. What was that like?
Oh man, I couldn't get to a beer quick enough. Seriously, I'm like, is there beer in this trophy? As soon as we got it, but also I'd heard what else has gone into that trophy, so I thought I probably shouldn't drink out of that. But as soon as we got back to we went up to this lodge, which is not far from the track, where all the Walkinshaw crew were already hard on the gas when Chaz and I got back. And man, we downed some beers so quick, and we just, it was the biggest celebration. It was so cool. And then that went on through the night, and then I think it's pretty. I don't know, you sort of feel like you deserve a sleep in the morning, mm-hmm. but you don't get it. It's like they want to torture you the next day. They know that you're partying hard, but they want to torture you. So you get up and you got a sunrise interview at 6:30, and you got your jumper on backwards, and you're wiping a bit of vomit off your face, and then you're talking to Koshy on the buddy. So,
g'day, Lee.
Oh, Jesus. So it was that's painful, but I was lucky because I probably had my last drink about half an hour before. So I was lucky because the hangover hadn't actually set in just yet. I'm lying about the vomit on the face. I didn't have that till later in the day. But you know what? The torture was worth it, because You're just like, that actually happened yesterday, and I don't really care that I feel like absolute crap right now. And then, you roll into another interview, and then by about midday, you're like, oh, God. But honestly, I could have lived with a hangover for 3 months after that and not cared. But, to get back, I think I probably shouldn't say that on air, but I got back that night, back to Melbourne. I did get some sleep before I left, and then had the long drive home and just reflected on the way home, and then got back to Alana and the kids, and yeah, that was cool.
Was it?
Yeah.
What'd they say? Did it sink?
Oh,
Because when they're younger like that, they kind of know a bit about what Dad does, but it maybe doesn't fully register the significance of Bathurst or whatever.
Yeah. I think definitely, they've been around. Riley's nearly 6 and Ava's been around for a good part of my career. She was born in 2012 when I went to Stone Brothers. And so she's seen the highs and lows of motorsport and, she certainly knows how much I put into it. And
What'd she say?
So I think she was screaming, and it was so cool to see that it meant something to them as well. And I think the fact that all their friends knew about it as well was like, wow, they probably thought, oh, this is actually pretty big.
Yeah. Oh, that's what he does.
Yeah,
that's what he does.
yeah. So people watch it. So that was a proud moment, to see that my kids were actually proud of me.
Lee's Supercars journey recently ticked over 500 races. He went from 1 to 500 and had a beautiful surprise to celebrate the milestone. Please stick around to hear Lee speak about his present and some of the fun stories from those early years. Disclaimer, he drives into a fence.
In that difficult period, with a little bit of help from Betty Klemenko, which I think's tremendous, and, I guess stitching it together yourself, you go off and play in a space that I'm working in TCR. You got to drive an Alfa Romeo. How was that whole experience? Something 180 of a supercar. How did you find that?
Yeah, it was very, very different. And yes, Betty Klemenko helped me out a lot, which was incredible. I certainly didn't expect that, but the first person I got on the phone once the announcement came about my contract being void for 2021 was Betty, and she said, hey, I want to help you out for next year financially with TCR, and I just thought, wow, that's pretty cool, and that's one thing I pride myself on in this sport is never burning bridges. Yes. So for her to step up and say that, I was stoked. So I at that stage I just wanted to race anything, and I had Ash Seawood calling me.
He works hard, doesn't he, on that whole deal?
He's a workhorse.
He's a workhorse.
Yeah. So Ash rang me and said, mate, let's just get this going. Like, we didn't have the full budget, and credit to him, he just said, mate, let's just get it underway and we'll work it out on the way. And so we rolled up to the first round. We had a test day before that, and I thought, far out. What have I got myself into here?
This is different.
Like, the front wheel drive is just, it's so different. It's a completely different, I would say skill set, but technique. They oversteer an entry when you're on the brake, and then you sort of got to overlap brake with throttle on turn in to tame the rear, and then you have to be able to rotate the car on throttle when it's wanting to understeer because you're on the gas. It's like it's just so backwards in the way that you do it. It's basically, best thing to describe it, it's like driving a supercar backwards. In reverse.
Really?
It's like driving in reverse. So when if you imagine driving a supercar or any road car, any rear wheel road car, into a corner, backwards, get on the brake, turn the wheel, and the thing steers so hard, It felt like that. It felt like a shopping trolley in the rear. But it was so cool to be able to learn a new craft. And then we rolled out at Tassie and stuck it on, was it pole? I think it was pole, for the first one. And then, won a race, finished up second in 2 others, but did actually win one of them, but got a penalty for, I think they said I creeped on the start. So that was cool to start the campaign that way. And I thought, this isn't so bad. And then we had a blank canvas on the car because we just had Betty supporting us. And then I had ACT Fence Hire come in on board. Who's he's a great guy, Angelo. He came on board and helped me out as well. And then we rolled into the second round. We had Phillip Island, and we had some weight ballast put into the car, and that's the thing that I got a bit frustrated about. That side of it was the BOP side.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we had a few issues with reliability in the car for the rest of the year, which was a bit of a shame. But I did enjoy it. I enjoyed driving that car, and I actually, I've said plenty of times that I felt like it did improve my style for the supercar in some way, because I never liked a loose car on entry, but then rolling back in, maybe it was what helped drive Chaz's car, because he does like a car that's very pointy on entry, and it was no dramas. I didn't even think about it, so maybe that contributed. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. It was very different to supercar. That whole year, all I wanted to do was be in a supercar. But yeah, good fun, good category.
While we're reminiscing a little here, can we reminisce about the Smiths Trucks Commodore? Because for me, that sort of evokes memories of working on the trackside program, and you were reunited with that car very recently. What comes back when you think of that machine?
So that actual car I drove with Phillip Skyfleet, and that was crazy. That on my 500th race, we were racing at the same track as I did my first race in supercars, and I thought that's just it's really fitting, and what the Groves did to get that car there and to organise all that was really cool, and so appreciated it so much. Not many people get to stand beside the car with the same livery and that looks in the exact same condition as what it did back then. 18 years later, or 19, maybe, I don't know how many years it is, so long. Nearly 2 decades later, standing beside the same car that you raced your first race with, and next to your car that you're racing your 500th with. But what comes to mind, I remember in that first race, down the back straight, I don't think I'd jumped in the car yet, but we were in the race, Sandown 500, and Phillip Skyfleet hit the pit lane limiter, I think, halfway down the back straight. Didn't realise it, and so we had an engine, like a big flame out in the airbox, which developed into a fire. And then he pulled off at the second last corner, and the thing was a smoking wreck. So yeah, that was my first memory of it. But my other memory, and these all sound like really bad memories, but my first round in development series was at Wakefield Park, and it was raining, and I finished up 6th in my first race, and I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. And then we went off to Adelaide. Alan Gurr was my teammate. We were both in Smiths Trucks cars, and Gurry put it in the fence at turn 8. It must have been on about lap 3, and then lap 4 I put it in the fence at turn 8 as well, or after a safety car. And my boss, Rob Smith, thought he was watching a replay.
Oh, no.
So, yeah.
Not one, but 2.
Yeah. A bit like how people thought the second plane for 9/11 was a replay, but probably not quite as extreme as that. So, yeah, that was one memory. But to be honest, in some ways, it really hurt Alan's career that weekend. But in another way, for me, it helped mine, because Alan stopped racing, and a lot of the good stuff that was on his car then came onto my car, because my car wasn't as bad as his. He basically wrote his off. So then Paul Morris was helping Gurry out during that phase, and he sort of came across and started helping me a fair bit at that point as well. And so yeah, Paul was a massive help to me as well, and that was really, like, that was one of the points where I think I can identify as a bit of a point in my career that gave me a break.
Did it? In what way? Because Paul was helpful and it opened doors and things? Or?
Yeah, well, I think the focus switched from Alan to me, and Alan was always Paul's protege. So it was now the focus was completely on me, and Paul put me in his car, tested me in his car, in his supercar, helped me out a lot, put me in at Norwell as a driving instructor, and really got behind me and pushed Robert Smith to keep upgrading the car, and then trying to help me find opportunities in the sport as well, and really just with advice. Paul is a guy that tells it how it is, as we know, and he doesn't like people that don't put in effort. So he could see, that I was prepared to do everything I could to make it, and so he just suggested a few things. Also, Ryan McLeod was massive in that phase as well. Even up to this point, he's been great advice for me and pushed my barrel pretty hard. He spoke to Gary Rogers, got him to sort of try and follow my progression. And at Queensland Raceway, I remember this is another turning moment. I qualified second on the grid next to Dean Canto at QR, and I was looking for an endurance drive for Bathurst that year with someone. And luckily, Ryan had already been in contact with Gary, so Gary's watching, and he called me over after that quali session. He said, "Hey, we want you to drive for us for Bathurst."
Unreal.
So we did the deal basically on a handshake deal in the truck in about 2 minutes. I wasn't going to say no.
No, yeah.
And I ended up driving with Philip Skyfleet, funny enough, in my first Bathurst with Gary.
You are renowned among your mates as being handshakes, aren't you?
I had it on my helmet at one point. I had it as a bit of an artistic flair on the helmet. But there's like I don't know whether it was Ant-Man at the time doing my helmet, and he had like two hands shaking each other, and one of the hands had fingers crossed.
So him.
So yeah, I'm hoping he meant it was the other party. But yeah, I've always Perkins and Moff and those guys, Caruso, they always give me crap about being handshake Holdsworth, because I think that's probably why I got on so well with Gary Rogers, because that's
how he does things, mate, largely.
Yeah, it's that old school nature. The way that I've grown up, it's all, everything's based on your word, and you're only as good as your word and all that sort of stuff. So if I shake hands with someone and we come to an agreement, that's as good as a contract done in my eyes. But unfortunately, it becomes too easy for people to get out of contracts when it's only when there's nothing down on paper.
Great reflection of your character, though, mate, in the corporate landscape in which we live, the litigious, whatever you want to call it, landscape that you have stuck to largely that policy with a number of things. I think it's tremendous. Just come back one step if we can. You're talking about people like Ryan McLeod, Paul Morris, and what went down with Gurry there and so on. I just want to underscore your commitment to this, if we can, too. You told a great story to Noons about emailing a lot of teams, telling them, hey, I'm here. I just want to come and learn. I'll be on the crew, whatever it might be, didn't you? You really... Yeah. And Ryan was the guy that responded, I think, wasn't he? So.
He was.
That's the end of part one of my podcast with driver's driver Lee Holdsworth. Don't think for a moment that his likeable nature makes him a walkover when it comes to battles on track. When that helmet goes on, he is tough, and that's because of the road that he has walked to get here. We continue on that theme and much more in part two, which is all loaded up and ready for you to enjoy in our Rusty's Garage library right now. You can hit the go button. There is lessons for young racers in there about rolling your sleeves up, immersing yourself and doing everything you can, the hard yards, to learn.